It's just great. It really is. I'm going to say muito obrigado. Muito.
Yeah, that's it. It's very thank you.
Very.
No, it's all nice of you guys to participate our initiative. It's good people to understand better what's really happened, because every time that I participate in an event here in Brazil, most of the time they are talking about laws. They're not talking of what really happened with the technology part. What is changing on the technology side? What is going to happen with the market? What is going to happen with the marketeers, with the brands, with the publishers? And I do not want to just to talk about laws. I want to talk about what is changing in the technology part, because this is what is going to impact in all the industry. It's not about the law, although the law is very important in all the issues. But the thing is that we need to understand what is going to happen with the technology side.
Yeah, and I loved hearing from Sebastian about Panorama. Xander's solution, we're actually in the process of a server-to-server connection with Xander. We currently, so the beauty of our solution, which we'll get into, Wanda, the beauty of our solution is we really don't want to get into the solutioning. What we do is the integration to the real smart people who do the solutioning. The infrastructural side of things is designed to plug and play where and when Bruno and or whomever is ready to plug. And then we add to that the warehousing capability, so you can do your replay. If you want to do a 30-day trial with a new tool, you don't have to take 30 days to accrue data. You take the last 3 months of your data and just plug it in, and you take those 30 days and you really maximize how you interact with new tech and streamline your whole stack. So we trust the Xanders and the Lodamies and on the programmatic side, on the third-party side, on the first-party side. You'll see, it's really exciting to be where we are on the foundational layer, because there's so many differing problems, number one, and then number two, these awesome solutions that super smart people are coming up with.
Yeah, it's not the first thing that I heard Sebastian talking about is that marketeers and brands will not look and trust with one solution. They will have to get multiple solutions in all this that matters about accuracy, about data, about media activation points, about footprints, and you cannot have just trust in one solution that goes it all, solution all problems. It's not that. It's to have about 3 to 4 partners that can build the data in a way that you can really trust in that data and really can use that data regarding the compliancy, the accuracy, the foundations of the data building. So that's why the whole idea of bring you guys, bring the fellows that I know, that I trust, that I have been working with and know that are looking forward in the marketing, seeing what really happens in the data point of view. Is not talking about just about loss, but seeing what's happening with the data and with all this changing happening with the walled gardens and what this is going to make the industry look like and all the ecosystem. So that's what moves me to make an event like this. So this is the whole point.
I think it's great. And you are recording it. This is going to be evergreen, right? Is it free content on your site?
Yeah, we are going to then separate all the speakers and put the content on our YouTube channel and social media channels. But we are not transmitting live in the social media right now, this event. We are just recording, and then we are going to put.
Yeah, we sent out that email and we got a few questions back asking if it was going to be all in Portuguese. And I said, I wish, but I only speak American. But I think it's awesome that you're putting it up, and making it available for free is, I think it's going to widen your audience, and it's going to widen ours as well. So,
all right. So let me introduce you to all Brazilians guys here, and for you to start your presentation, right? Bom, pessoal, a gente está voltando aqui, né? Deu 5 minutinhos aí para que todo mundo pudesse tomar um café, beber uma água. Lembrando que as perguntas sejam feitas pelo Q&A, aí pelo QIA da sua plataforma do Zoom. Não deixem de fazer perguntas por ali. Tem uma pergunta aqui para o Lito. Lito, como a gente correu no tempo, se você puder responder aí, digitar sua resposta, eu te agradeço. Se não, depois a gente troca e-mail para responder a sua pergunta. E agora a gente vai com o nosso apresentador aí, meu amigo, my closest friend from USA, amigo de mais aí de 6 anos de amizade, no qual eu tive o prazer de encontrar com ele em diversos países, não só nos Estados Unidos ou aqui no Brasil, a gente já se encontrou em outros países também. É um cara que vive no ecossistema aí de mídia digital e programática, pelo menos pelos últimos 7 anos, tem um vasto conhecimento sobre tudo que acontece na nossa indústria, no nosso ecossistema, e que agora vai falar um pouquinho sobre a sua nova fase aí na Metarouter, aonde ela já tem clientes brasileiros, né? É uma tecnologia muito inovadora, uma empresa que é uma startup que começou aí recentemente, mas já tem clientes aí globais, e tem uma solução muito inovadora aí para as discussões das questões legais de dados referente ao nosso LGPD, ao CCPA e ao GDPR. Então, hey Preston, welcome. Thank you a lot to be part of it, to be here for speak for all Brazilian guys, and feel free to go. The time is yours, my friend.
Muito obrigado. This is awesome. We're really excited to be a part of this. My name is Preston Ketchum. I work at Metarouter.io. I've been in the digital space, MarTech space, for about a dozen years, and I've worked with my friend Bruno for about 5, maybe 6 years of that tenure. And again, thank you for inviting us to participate. Today, I'm going to talk about LGPD and why it's smart for small, mid-size, and international agencies to think ahead and plan ahead and be ahead of LGPD before it's implemented, and more importantly, before it's enforced by the Brazilian government. So first, really, why prepare now with Metarouter? I mean, obviously, kind of a shameless plug in. One of the reasons why I'm here is I think Bruno knows that there's some overlap between the solution that we provide and the pending enforcement of LGPD. But basically, we are flexible and secure customer data infrastructure. So we collect, ingest, and syndicate or publicate the data across analytics, personalization, marketing, warehousing tools. And within that, you can control and own that first-party data. That's what ultimately we're driving towards, is this first-party data ecosystem that you own and that is secure and private in terms of how you engage and how you want to engage, and forge that relationship of trust with your consumers, because that's really what LGPD is about. It's about your customers, and it's about trust. So we'll get into that a little bit more here in a second, but we're the data infrastructure, which is the architectural part that does all your integrations from first-party properties, apps, website, through to all your marketing tools. So why now for LGPD? You know, there's no real threat. There's not any existing fines out there for Brazilian companies, but I think our perspective is we think LGPD, Metarouter, believes LGPD is healthy for the digital ecosystem. It's healthy for consumers. And more importantly, the agencies and the brands that they're buying products and services from. We think it's important to engage with LGPD now. I mean, first off, because data volume is increasing. It's increasing exponentially. If you look at this graph, look at June 2017 to May 2018, that's a year. I mean, it's flat. There's no growth in customer interactions that are digital. If you look at from December 2019 to July 2020, which is the beginning to the effectively peak of COVID, I mean, we saw over 22% of volume of customer interactions that are digital globally. APAC, similar, Europe, North America, and the same in South America. It's this exponential increase in data volume. So implementing LGPD now is going to ensure that this next bump, if there is, when there is, that you're ready for it. You know, pave the way to being that safe place for your customer so that, again, they can trust your brand, your agency. You know, data volume is increasing, but it's not only increasing, that increase is accelerating. So the number of products and services, not just the events, but think about, you know, people that are buying groceries online. Our parents, they typically weren't embracing the whole digital life cycle, but now they're ordering groceries and you know, food online and anything that they can through their mobile or their desktop. You want to be prepared for that. As more and more people take on the digital world, we want to be prepared, and we want to have that system of trust. LGPD is a perfect form. It's inspired by that. That's what GDPR, which inspired LGPD, was based on. Then you get into the customer interactions. I mean, look at those numbers. I don't think we could keep up at that pace and then transform and apply LGPD restrictions on top of that. You can't keep up with the growing volume of people and data and all that good stuff while implementing these new solutions. So before the next wave comes, it's a good time to think about LGPD prior to the enforcement side of the law. Then we get into data complexity. I mean, it is amazing. Well, this is interesting. You're talking about the pace that COVID-19 crisis has driven. Basically, how often do you assess your tools, right? So initially, prior to COVID, you're talking about annual assessment, right? You know, are you looking at the digital talent among business units or function? Do you share, test, and learn findings across your organization? Typically, that was done annually, maybe quarterly. Now we have to think about it weekly, right? So LGPD now, because the more that you look at your tools and assess your tools, you got to level up across all of them, and you got to level up for your clients as well. So the idea is to bring up your game before these enforcement policies really take hold. The other part about complexity is this. I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen this. You go from what, 600 tools 10 years ago to 8,000 now. So not only is like the world changing, you know, demographically and in terms of what platforms and you look at the tools. I can't even read any of these logos, but the point is, the more tools there are, the more you have to drill down into what tools you're going to use and use most effectively. And then what are your clients or your customers, the end user, what tools are they using? This landscape is so complex. The idea is to pave the way with flexible infrastructure that can plug and play, right? That's what our solution allows you to do. And that plugging and playing doesn't mean you get a 30-day trial with a new tool and you might set up a new campaign and you start accruing data, and you might have 7 days of data that you can apply for the balance of that 30-day trial. With our warehousing capabilities, you can tap into your last 3 months of data and you shoot that live in. You've got 30 days of fully functioning, all good stuff. The next is the confusion. And I think we've spoken about this a little bit prior, but this is a tag ecosystem of a publisher's site. And what this offers is a tremendous amount of opportunity for nefarious and maybe misinformation. Partly, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all nefarious, but in terms of protecting your client, again, thinking about people and trust, we have to protect the client. And doing so, we're not going to let all these 10,000 or 8,000 third parties determine how they're using PII as it relates to your clients. What our solution does is it removes the tags off of the client or off of the page, and we ingest in a first-party context, and then Metarouter communicates with all of these third parties. And rather than getting into the technology about how we do that, but why we do that is we want to make sure that that our customers, Metarouter's customers, pass only the PII that they want to pass to these third parties, rather than trusting the third parties to obfuscate or hash, personal information. So we'll do that for you, or actually our clients can do it using our tool. But we don't want to leave it up to the third parties because it's confusing. And the more third parties, they might have different rules, and they might be located in different geographies. So we want to make sure, or you want to make sure, that what PII is passed along is legal and relevant, safe, and most importantly, trustworthy to our client base and your client base. I think another important thing about LGPD is timing. Like it's kind of unclear. On September 17th, the Brazilian president mandated that LGPD should be effective on this date. But on August 21st, the penalties will show up. This is not something that's etched in stone, but I think it's important to put it in context that if you don't pave the way in the proper way, right, to obfuscate and hash what we're supposed to hash, all these things are going to happen before we realize it. And with all the other things that are going on in the digital ecosystem, it really is important to get back to that foundation or architectural element of your stack. Make sure that it's not August 1st, 2021, when you decide to implement LGPD. You're going to have 40 other things on your desk. And it's really simple, that if we trust that the government has our best interest in mind, then we can work towards accommodating what those rules are. And they might evolve and they might change. But the point is, we're going to be there. Other partners are going to be there that can help you avoid this. The GDPR fines, I mean, they just keep rising and keep rising and rising. And that's from agencies and brands who choose not to prioritize this because they don't think that it really applies to them. And the truth is, inevitably, whether it applies to them through government or through their customers, the government expects it on behalf of the customers, of the people. And I really think it's a very important part of how businesses plan, is you got to listen to your customers. And if not, we need to fear the government. And I think avoiding these fines, it's critical. So I think these are all numbers that are crazy, but millions and millions and millions of dollars. And it might seem like it's abstract and maybe off in the distance, but if you look at something like this, whoops, 41 million people, or $41 million, I'm shocked. Several hundred employees were basically they evaluated performance through the PII. And I'm shocked. I can't even imagine how that happened. But as an employee and a customer, my private life should not be relevant to my professional performance, let alone a $41 million fine because of it. I think that's where control is important. Then we get into this Marriott fine, $23.8 million. That's a big fine. But the scary part is they weren't fined for after they bought Starwood for like post the acquisition. They were fined for failing to do due diligence prior to their acquisition. So it's almost like they went back in time, and I'm not sure how this would apply in Brazil, but we need to think about it in terms of what's happening now, right? And then what's happening beyond when they start enforcing LGPD. So again, I think timeliness here was critical. Marriott would have saved almost $24 million if they had implemented properly when they had the time to implement. So I think that's another important factor to consider about being ahead. Don't let that mistrust be from the date of enforcement according to your president. Make that that trust, make that a fundamental part of how you go to market. And that's connecting with your clients, connecting with your third-party partners. And it doesn't mean those partners are bad. It just means limiting what's being sent to them so that you can control what is being passed along from your customer data. So this one's interesting. I hope it's not too abstract, but LGPD now, so you can learn and implement at the pace of crisis. Because LGP is not the only imminent digital change. We're in the middle of it. That's what all these other, Lodamine, Xandr, they're talking about, all these other things that are happening in the digital ecosystem, like the death of the third-party cookie. What are we going to do? I don't know. Well, what comes first, LGPD or the third-party cookie? We believe they all have to happen. So it's just they all work within our solution. The death of the third-party cookie doesn't mean there's going to be one solution like Panorama from Loader. Great solution. It's an awesome solution. But the whole point of Metarouter is to be nimble and flexible and to be able to plug and play with multiple solutions. And then we have another thing called the sync injector, which allow us to sync these IDs within those third parties. So you can use multiple and create your own library, first party library, which is super critical moving forward. So you got LGPD, death of the third party cookie. You got the Google Lighthouse ranking score. I mean, it's about site speed. Milliseconds matter, right? So the way we deal with that is we take the tags off of the page or off of the client side, and we put one tag, our tag, and then we pass we sync all those third-party tags with the third-party partners, and that speeds up the website, the UI, increases your Google Lighthouse ranking. So there's three things: LGPD, death of the third-party cookie, Google Lighthouse ranking. Then you got the iOS 14 privacy feature that to keep ad tracking at bay. So customers are getting smarter, and they expect trust with their brands, with their agencies, and they will continue to do. Trust will increase, or the expectation of trust will increase over time. And again, our solution, this infrastructural, this architectural solution is totally agnostic, but it allows you to solution dynamically, right? So as one solution gets up to the top, whether it's Panorama or even the sandbox, choose that, sync with the others. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. It's not the end of the world as we know it. It's just an opportunity to be flexible and prepared. So why do we exist? Well, we exist because this major Fortune 25 company came to us and asked if we could solve the problem of connecting teams with their customer data securely. And that's what we did. We built it, and it's flexible, right? It's secure, it's fast, it's compliant, but that compliance doesn't necessarily just mean GDPR. GDPR inspired LGPD. And what we do is we take each individual event and give you event level control of what is passed from those first party partners beyond Metarouter. 100% control. No one can dictate to you. It's not going to be Google. It's not going to be Facebook. They're not going to be extracting all that data and insight logic that most people realize that they're extracting without our knowledge. We give you that ability to control and own all that data. So here's the ingestion. I spoke a little bit about this earlier, the sync injector, but it basically, it takes all of that first party information, that customer data, and it ingests it, creates this server side ID menu, and then syncs with all your third party partners, right? And so within that, it's this gateway for logic. So you are only passing on to these partners what you determine those partners should have, versus how it works now. They just give you the tag, and who knows what information is on it. So the next thing that our solution offers, this is improved page performance. And I touched on this a little bit earlier, where we're removing the tags from the page. So 700 milliseconds of average latency eliminated per 3 server-side integrations. So that's what we do. It's server to server, right? It's not a client-side integration anymore. That's a thing of the past. The server to server really gives you improved performance and improved control to go back and forth between those partners. The next thing, and I think Bruno and I were talking about this just prior to getting on, improved consistency. But if you look at the before and after, it's amazing, right? The discrepancy, like, have you ever had a one-to-one attribution? I'm not sure. We didn't, when I was in MarTech prior to getting into the infrastructural space. But now with Metarouter, it improves accuracy and reliability across partners. So you determine what a conversion is. You determine that full funnel attribution model. Before Metarouter, you've got a variance. There's always a percentage. Google says one thing, Pinterest says another. And with Metarouter, you determine exactly who's passing, what the events or what determines the actual event, both implicit and explicit. We can do both. Actually, I should say you can define both. And that's really the beauty of Metarouter, is you're controlling what the definition of that event is and what information is being passed along. So here's where the compliance and audit and monitoring. So the whole client-side library and the Metarouter, right? So we centralize all of that from the page, right? We centralize that 100% to a single architecture to protect against these accidental compliance violations. When you see, you know, a tag ecosystem of a publisher's website and they've got 70 different integrations, you might trust 5 of them, but I don't think it's safe to trust all 70. And that's where the server to server connection comes in, because we throttle what information and what events are passed to all those parties, all those third parties. And here's a little example of what that looks like. So when we get the server to server mapping, this is just a standard event view. So say we're on AD3Plus's website and you got the page viewed, product viewed, cart viewed, etc. So through Metarouter, little arrow here, we hash all of this, right? So you're shaping the data the way you want it delivered, not just adding a tag and allowing them to extract what they want to extract, right? So your individual analytics align, your ad tech partners, what information control, and a really incredibly powerful way to facilitate trust with all of your clients and trust that your third-party partners, even though they might have the best things in mind, there's data and insight within each one of those tags that we don't know that's being shared, right? We just don't know. So this is the way to control it. We hash it and remove what we don't want to share. Here's just another view, right? Through those playbooks, you basically, it's consumer agnostic. The server to server mapping is defined by you. So instead of sharing all this stuff, you share basically what you want to share. And it might seem Greek. Use analytics.js is the language that we use or the spec that we use, but our UI is a really easy way to do it. And we're happy to go through that if you have any questions or issues. And, you know, muito obrigado for inviting me, but I'd love to open up if anyone has any questions.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I think it's very, very, very clariful about what's going to happen in the global marketing regarding this data issue. Is not about only a third-party cook, but it's about PII. It's about consumer data, and it's amazing what you guys are doing there. So I have a question about when you guys on all this process. I don't know if you have a case like that. How do you working with the programmatic platforms and by sending them all this PII, all this information about customer that you can activate in using media? So if you're interrupting the data to go to the website, to go to the browser, how is that it works?
So we don't interrupt the data to the browser. We interrupt or we obfuscate the data as it's sent to the third parties, right? So if, for example, you know, for Xandr, for example, we actually have a live in production server to server connection with Xandr. The client that we produced that server to server connection for, they control what information is passed to Xandr. So we don't see what is obfuscated. Metarouter doesn't. We put that control in that enterprise client, right? So I don't ultimately know what they're hashing and in terms of passing it on to the Xanders, but I know that they have a wonderfully healthy relationship with Xander, and actually it's become more robust. So the whole goal is to give that same power to other enterprises and agencies. It's not that they don't trust Xander, it's that they want to share relevant information to Xander and limit their exposure to liability. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, yes. So as you run a little bit of time, but we have some question here. I would ask you to type the answer to questions. Pessoal, se tiverem mais perguntas, aqui na apresentação está o e-mail do Preston. Se quiserem mandar para mim, para nós aqui da AD3, perguntas para o Preston, a gente vai estar mais do que feliz de compartilhar com ele, porque a gente já está em cima do tempo aí do próximo palestrante. Hey, Preston, thank you a lot for this presentation. Thank you for being in our webinar. I love to hear about Metarouter. Since we got there, we have been talking a lot. There is a guy who asking about the business model, but you can answer on typing that on the Q&A. So we are going to do our next presentation.